Hello. Um, we we made it. Well, almost. This is the fourth and final week of the 6255 course focused on teaching learners, sort of looking at instructional practices aligned with the developmental elements that you learned in 6250. I really do appreciate that you guys are working hard. These 4 week classes are tough on top of all the other classes and then life that you have going on. I am wanting to give you just a quick overview of week 4 and maybe a little words of encouragement to say we're near the end. Everybody will have a chance to take a one or two breaths and then I guess get right into your pre-planning, which happens as soon as late next week, I believe. Okay, so I have D2L on what is student view for me, so I think this is a close representation of what you see. And again, I recommend that you view the content by starting at this window. You will see in week 4 that, sorry, internet is slow here. I am at I'm up in the mountains in Colorado working with a school district this week. So you'll see in week 4, we have 2 modules, and then this is just a small placeholder. I'll point to that in just a second. The assessment module, and then an ethics and professionalism module. The assessment module is probably just a little bigger than others, and the ethics and professionalism is definitely a bit smaller. So I'm not going to do a complete overview of the assessment module, but I do want to point to a couple terms that will be most prevalent in your ongoing work in both in the schools and preparing for your EdTPA. That is the idea of formative versus summative assessment. A couple short words that might help these two ideas stick. Formative assessment is designed to collect information about what students are learning to inform your teaching. And summative assessment is to summarize what students have learned. In very simplistic terms, summative assessment really happens at the very end of a learning segment or a unit. Informative assessment really should be ongoing, the normal repetition of your work as a teacher. When you are teaching and you're listening to students collaborate or work on a project or present to each other, you are conducting the most informal of formative assessment during that time. Again, that's informal formative assessment. You are listening to them think. You're learning about what they understand. You can make your formative assessment a little more formal by doing a small exit ticket on their way at the very end of class. Ask them, what is something that stood out today? What is a question you have at the end of class? Formative assessments can be a little more formal. In the past, like in the old days, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, we used to talk about quizzes. Like we would give quizzes through our units just to check in on where kids were understanding. What we have learned is that when teachers are actively engaged in formative assessment, that makes a significant difference on students' opportunities to learn. And I would say that is the main reason it's become very prevalent in our teacher preparation programs nowadays. Something that's not so popular might be the right way of saying it, both in terms of how frequently is stated and how much it is emphasized, is that formative assessments should not be graded. The intent of a formative assessment is to see where students are right now. It is different than summative. In summative, you're thinking, you really should be here at this point in time. You should be understanding this content, and I'm going to grade you that you're understanding so much. But with formative assessment, you probably don't know exactly where students are and need to know. So if they're behind even where you might want to, should their grade be penalized for that sort of, for you checking in on where they are? So I'm going to leave that with something that just kind of rattles in the back of your mind as you read through about formative and summative assessments. Not a lot of details on exactly how to, or even more of what I mentioned in regards to the research on how important that is. I selected all 3 chapters on testing in the textbook. Again, you guys, I can't help but call them chapters because I've always thought of D2L having these modules. So I'm sorry that's confusing, but I don't think anybody's completely broken down over that one over the our 4 weeks. And you might, I've suggested, especially in the last chapter, that you don't have to read a couple sections. What interesting in that is some overview on thinking about designing your own tests, and most importantly, I feel, is how to interpret all these test scores that you're getting in your schools from standardized tests. We're kind of in an era where schools are getting lots and lots of data on student performance on standardized tests. I really think these chapters in the book will help you prepare to know how to digest those test scores. I've offered in this unit some also articles that will help you think about assessment and grading, sort of teasing out grading as something that is different from assessment, although closely related, and how grading actually works to undermine intrinsic motivation in some related things. I don't know how much of that overview is necessarily worthwhile, but as you can see, you have two discussion topics in this section. They're kind of almost meant to go back to back, but I'm asking you to submit them separately. And then one short assignment where I'm asking you to design a rubric. Pointing to the ethics and professionalism module, you know that, well, maybe you don't know, the Georgia Department of Education expects that we prepare you to think about your role as a teacher, especially related to the ethical issues. So at Kennesaw, we designed these 4 ethics modules, which every time I go back to them, in my 26th year of being an educator, they're always good even for me to still go back at. So I hope you find them good settings to think about the ethical dilemma that's there, because every one of these modules or these dilemmas that are posed are really difficult. Like, my score every time is not 100% passing. But anyway, so I'm going to ask you to discuss some of those ethical dilemmas within your learning community and give a brief report. And you also have to do this ethics quiz. I've said it here, but I'm going to say it one more time. All I need you to do for that ethics quiz is upload it to Chalk and Wire. I know you did that in your 6250 class. I know it's not a terribly pleasant experience. Trust me, I live that same life as you do. You need to upload it to Chalk and Wire and tag me as the assessor. In the assignment, I only need you to write a quick note that says it is submitted. This text right here, I'm sorry it still says that. I thought I edited it away, but I'm going to tell you, you do not have to submit a screenshot here, just into Chalk and Wire. Final word is about, you have one final assessment. It's sort of the big final assessment for the course. And that's in essence to look at some lesson plans and analyze it through some of the topics of this course, looking for the elements of the overall lesson plan. You've kind of done already small parts of this, so much of this might be sort of a reiteration of some earlier work. I'm going to move to the instructions real quick because as I look back at these, one of your classmates helped point this out to me. You saw I did that academic language video because there are some terms that are so close to each other, and what do they mean? And I see in this that I've confused a couple things. So you see in the task it says, select a lesson plan that you might teach. Analyze the lesson plan. And then details, locate a learning segment, a sequence of 3 1 to 5 day lessons. Let me back up and say, first, I definitely want you to try to identify a learning segment, 3 to 5 days of class time in which a major idea is developed. And when I say 3 to 5 days, I'm thinking 3 to 5 50-minute periods. So that could also be 2-ish block periods of time. So here I'm saying locate a learning segment, and previously I said select a lesson plan. I'm going to go back and change this assignment so it says learning segment all the way and re-upload it to Chalk and Wire, so anybody who downloads again in the future will see the difference. But again, I want to emphasize, I want you to locate a learning segment. And I'm going to say just a little bit more one more time about what a learning segment is. So I'm going to use EdTPA language in specifically. So there are larger ideas, sometimes not exactly the same as a standard, but sometimes this is a standard. But EdTPA language is about a central focus. What is this important scientific idea? What is this important idea in English language arts? What's this important mathematical idea, or whatever discipline? Most of those ideas don't get developed in one 50-minute period. So I'm asking you to look for a lesson segment that develops that one idea. Now, depending on your discipline, that might really be one lesson plan that is described to take place over 3 to 5 days. I see a lot of English language arts and social studies lesson plans designed for several days. Especially in mathematics and sometimes science, I see lesson plans designed for 1 day. So again, I want you to look at a learning segment where it's 3 to 5 days. For some of you, that might look like a collection of a few lesson plans. And for some of you, it's this one lesson plan is meant for 3 to 5 days. I hope me saying this over and over is not getting more and more confusing. I'm going to stop trying to repeat myself and just end with saying, I'm going to repost the reflective planning for learning assignment. So if you've downloaded it already and want to just see the small nuances, I'm going to change some of this language right here, and that's all I'm going to change. And again, I want to emphasize, I expect you to analyze a learning segment, which might be a sequence of 3 to 5 one-day lessons. All right, y'all, that's it. We have just under 1 week left in this class, and I wish you the best of luck. Buckle down, crank through this last week, and I know many of you are also finishing up a couple other classes in the next day or two, and I won't be able to say this at the end unless somebody's going to tune in and find a video. I'll just say congratulations. It's been nice to meet you. I appreciate the video introductions you did, the questions that are going back and forth, or the interactions in your assignments. But I really can't wait to meet every one of you again face-to-face on campus during the next year. You all have a big year coming ahead where you're engaged in your clinical experiences, or some of you are already currently practicing teachers, but I hope the support classes and methods classes at Kennesaw add a lot to how you understand your teaching, and all of you learn to become great teachers, improving from how good you might already be. Excuse me, I got a cough. Y'all, I know you've dedicated a lot of your summertime to Kennesaw. It's great to have you as students, and again, I look forward to meeting you all soon. Have a nice final week. Take care. Bye-bye.